Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday. I am going to show you the folio that I am going to make with you for our New Year's Eve crop. I hope that you guys are enjoying the crop and all the fun projects that we're doing. So for mine, I chose to make a little folio. I do love to make folios and albums, mostly. And I made this with the smaller photos in mind. And what I mean by that is this one is an example that was taken of me, my best friend, and my goddaughter. This is from an Instax Fujifilm camera. And these are instant cameras. They do different sizes. Some of them print in landscape. You can also, you may have one of the little photo printers that prints from your phone, the smaller photos in different sizes. And I really wanted to make a folio that was specifically for that, and also leave a lot of the black artisan cardstock, because you can take a white or other opaque colored pen and you can journal on it. So you could say beach trip 2024 or something of that nature in your own writing. You can write things on there, and there's many gel pens out there that are opaque colors. It doesn't have to be white, but that is what I wanted to do, and the artisan takes to that ink really nicely. You do want to let it dry a little bit so it doesn't smudge. This is, like I said, a gel pen, so it didn't smudge. Also, I'm using Homer's Diner, Country Craft Creations exclusive for this, and I'm going to run through the finished one, and then I will go on to the tutorial. And just so you know, the tutorial is going to be done in segments. I had a little issue with my video, and I had to go back and re-record a couple things. So what I've done for you is I just put title screens up so you know where we're at, and each one of those title screens, for the most part, has measurements, as well as I also go over the measurements with you. But you can always pause those screens and write it down, or pause them and cut if you need to. So first, starting with the cover, I took a piece of black chipboard and cut down one of the 4x6 elements from the 12x12 cut aparts, and I just made it fit so that there was about an eighth, a little bit more than an eighth of an inch of that black chipboard showing. And this is done in a style so that the front panel is a little smaller, so that you see that little peekaboo of the paper underneath. And I'm just going to untie this. Now for my closure, I wanted to use some seam binding, and I couldn't find it. So I grabbed some black ribbon from my stash. I would have much preferred the seam binding. I just didn't have any. But this is adhered underneath my mat, which I used the My Colors Caribbean, I believe it's Caribbean Sea. And I've also used some of the salmon Cartabella paper, but those will be linked below. So when you open this up, the first panel here has 3 notched, gusseted, stacked pockets. And they are 4.5, 3.5, and 2.5. So there's an inch in between each, and you can do different size things. The middle panel here, we have more of that salmon Cartabella paper. This middle panel has 2 magnets with 3-page waterfalls for a little bit larger photos. Or you can simply take one of these photos lengthwise, put that there, and do your journaling underneath of it. You could glue it on, do your journaling here, and put a ticket or something from a trip, whatever you want to do. And then both of these were covered with paper. So you have 6 spots here. If you put pictures on both sides, that's 12, which is a lot. On this side here, what I did for the closure for the band on this side is I punched a hole in between these 2 small pockets, and I put a knot in a piece of the thread and pulled it through. That way, rather than it wrapping all the way around my album or having to come around this piece and squish it closed, it literally makes it so it comes right where I want it. And that's why I did it that way. You just need to be cautious about either punch your hole before you put your pockets down, or make sure that you use the 1/8 inch on the big crocodile so that you get that hole right between those pockets without popping a hole in your pockets. So we have our 2 little pockets here. And I don't have anything on the side of me to show you how these work, but they're just your normal pockets. And then this back one is mainly for these. So you see how nicely these fit. And there are 7 pages for this smaller waterfall. So, and you can use these. I opted not to put paper in between the spaces like I normally do because I can journal up there and write down what the picture is. Now, I will tell you, when I did the covering of this, I did these 1-inch strips. And I used this checkerboard paper. The problem with that is, as you can see, it doesn't line up completely. So I would suggest 1/2 inch, not 1 inch, because it was really a chore to try to line those up as good as I could. And it's still not perfect, but it works. So next we'll just move on to the tutorial. I hope you enjoy it. So what we're going to start with, I'm using black artisan, and you're going to need 2 pieces for the base. So we're going to start there. I'll set my other pieces aside here. So for the base, because it's longer than 12 when it unfolds, we're going to have to add an extension. And I just threw my scoring tool on the floor. Let's try that again. Okay. So the first piece is 12 by 7. And our extension will be 3 3/4 by 7. Okay. So for the 12 by 7, we're going to score this at 4 3/4. That good. And I'm going to actually switch bone folders here. I like this a little better. And I just cleaned my scoreboard. So, all right. So 4 3/4. And then I want a 3/4 inch gusset or spine, whatever you want to call that, here. So I'm going to go over to 5 1/2, and I'm going to score again. And then, so our front piece is 4 3/4. We want this to be 5. This is our back side. So that means we need to go over to 10 1/2. And then I need that other 11, or excuse me, that other 3/4 space. So we are going to take this to 1 2 3 4 5 11 1/4. Okay. Now, if you want to, before you add your extension, you can go in from 12 over to 12 1/2 and just make yourself a little tick mark. This will just help you line up your paper when you adhere the extension, which has no scoring on it. So I'm going to move my scoreboard out of the way, and we are going to put this on. Actually, I'm going to use my scoreboard, I think, for this. And somehow I just got water from cleaning. It'll dry. Okay, so I'm just going to bring this in and put that score mark here on the 6. And then I can bring my 3 3/4 in, and I can line it up on that, those tick marks, which is right at the 7, just to make sure that I'm lining this up good. If I can get my glue open. Okay, so I am going to, I shouldn't be gluing on my scoreboard, but I'm going to be very careful. I'm just going to glue this in this little area here. And you can use score tape for this too. I just prefer wet adhesive. I'm going to line this up with that 7. Using my scoreboard helps me make sure also that I get it lined up. All right, I'm going to get this out of here so I don't get anything else on my scoreboard, and go ahead and burnish that down. And then you can kind of get rid of those little 1/4 inch tick marks that we made. And I'm just getting glue everywhere. Goodness. I need to have a cloth here. Okay. And then just make sure you're all lined up. If for some reason you cut this piece a little longer, you can trim that with your scissors. Mine is fine. Now we're going to go through and we are going to, this is going to be upside down. Interesting. Okay. So go ahead and fold on this line here where we put those. This back piece, will be 4 inches is what I do believe I measured that out to be. Let me just double check for you. Yes, this back flap will be 4 inches. So burnish that out nicely. And then you have your next one that also needs to go this direction. Just line everything up before you burnish. And if you are using Artisan like I am, it should not crack. I still suggest that you are gentle. It's still paper. And then we're going to do the same, but I'm going to go the opposite direction. So these are going to fold in. And these 2 lines for your little spines, these 3/4 inch spines, really need to be burnished well so that they're nice and crisp, because this is a folio with no chipboard. We just want to make sure that everything lays nice and flat and works well. So the idea of this is you have a flap here and a flap here, but when this closes, because that back piece is a little bit wider than our front piece, you'll still, when you close this, see a little strip of the paper here as well, okay? And you can do it that way. You can close it up and then it's kind of pyramid shaped, either way. So that is the first part. That is our base. All right, so I am going to slip this little tutorial. Somehow my footage for a couple of things didn't work very well, so I'm just going to go ahead and re-record them for you. But for the stacked pockets here, what you want is 3 sheets. You're going to have one that is 4.5, well, 5 5/8 by 4.5. One that is 5 5/8 by 3.5. I'm not in the camera. And 5 5/8 by 2.5, as you'll see on the screen. And then to turn these into pockets, you just want to put them in at the 5 5/8, score at half, turn, score lengthwise at half, turn, and score again, so that you have scoring on 3 sides, 1 long side, 2 short sides. And then we are just going to miter those corners like so. This is what you will have. I just wanted to make sure that you saw this in its entirety, because my video did not work the greatest at this part. So I've already scored my 1/2 inch on this side, it looks like. This is my bottom. And then half, and then turn it around and score a 1/2 inch again. Go ahead and miter my corners. And then I did the envelope punch board for my notch in the middle. You can do yours with whatever tool you like, or you can leave them flat. And I did end up decorating mine in the end, as you can see that I just showed that. These will just fold in. The last one is the 3.5 with the 5 5/8 width. We're going to go half, half, and half. And I'm sure there's probably much easier ways to make these stack pockets so they're not quite as bulky. But for this folio, this style works just fine. There's not a lot of bulk, and there's 3/4 inch spines in this folio, so you have lots of room to play with. So once you get a good burnish on all of these, these are extra, so I'm going to put these away for later, and I don't know if I want to notch them, so I'm not going to notch them. You'll stack once you get your papers for decorating on, you'll stack these just as shown after they're notched and everything, and then you can just put the whole piece down on your page, as you can see here, like so. And doing it at 4 5/8 will ensure that you don't get in any overhang on this side or anything on this side into your score lines. Okay, so that's how we do the notched pockets. For the middle section, you're going to have 6 4¼ by 3¼ inch pieces of the black cardstock. Now, these are also going to stay black, and my reasoning for that is you can take a white gel pen, write on Artisan really, really nicely, and write down, there's other colors that are opaque like this as well besides white if you wanted to use hot pink. There's lots of gel pens out there, but you can actually write on the Artisan, you know, add a little sentiment or something under a photo. So these are going to house a little bit bigger photos. And what you'll also need for this is 2 pieces that are 1½ by 4½. Okay. And we're going to do some scoring. So I'm going to grab my scoreboard. So the 1½ by 4½, put them in at 4½ and score a ½ inch on both. Okay, so you have those 2. Now for all 6 of the 4¼ by 3¼ put those in your scoreboard at 4¼ and score them at 3¼ Okay. Or you can score them at ½ inch on the end as well, which probably is actually the better idea with a waterfall, because we're doing this waterfall a little bit differently. So just put them in at 4¼ all of them, and score it ½ inch across that top. And you will have, like I said, 6 of those. These will not be embellished. These will be left black. So take your 2 pieces of 1½ by 4½ and miter to make a little tab where we scored that ½ inch. Like so. So you'll have 2 little tabs like this, and then just go ahead and fold those down. You don't have to give them a hard burnish yet because these have to hold our waterfalls closed with magnets. So we want to make sure that we don't get too hard of a closure. And we can put stuff on them. You could put one of these fun little records from the collection. Whatever you're using, you can use cut-aparts. So one of our waterfalls is going to go this way and open, and the other one will open this way. So we want one of these on one side and one on the other. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere this one. I'm going to take one of my waterfall pieces so I can kind of get an idea of where my middle is going to be. And that's about perfect right there. So this is where I want my waterfall to go. So I'm going to add glue just to the back of that tab. And I'm going to put that right up next to my score line. Not in it, but up next to it. Let me just make sure that I didn't just... Yeah, I went too far down. Let's go over a bit. Nope, too much. All right, that's good. And just go ahead and burnish that down. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to put one down here, right about where I want it. And my middle is going to be right about here. So I'm actually this time, because I don't want to have to move it 5 times, I am going to go ahead and just make a little mark with a pencil because we're covering this paper anyways. And that will tell me where to stick this after I put my glue on. So I'm just going to put glue on that tab and slide this up next to those pencil marks I made. And there we go. So now we are going to add magnets. So you'll want a plus and a minus. I am going to grab some magnets here from my stack. And you can use the smalls on this. Originally I had used the large, and I think the smalls are fine because they're really strong. These are basic gray magnets that you can get at Country Craft Creations. That's where I get mine. And I need a plus and a minus. Okay, we have it. So what you want to do is take the sticky off one side. And I need a pokey tool, because all I'm doing is pulling the whole thing off. Pokey tool is your friend with these sticky things. There we go. All right. So put this on. Let me get this into the camera. This is our tab here. We are going to go ahead and put this here. And then we'll take the backing off the other one. And then you just want to push it down. And it puts the magnet where we want it. And we're going to do the same thing on the next set of magnets. I'm going to pull off the sticky from one side. Place it under here. And make sure when you place your magnets that you put them in the middle of the paper as much as possible so that you don't run into not being able to cover them with your paper. We will cover these with paper. Push that down. And then when you lift up, if it sticks, which sometimes the magnets are a little too strong and they don't want to stick. Okay, there. So I've cut, this back panel here is 5 inches. So this is a 4 7/8, or no, this is 4 and, the back panel is 4 3/4. Sorry, it's 5. But I cut this at 4 3/4 by 6 7/8 because I didn't want it to hang over the sides too much. So I'm just going to go ahead and add glue to this. And this is going to cover those magnets. And it's also going to cover the tabs to our little closures. These little belly bands. Okay. Put that on. Burnish over those magnets. And you can do this with whatever paper you want. So we will go back and do these. For now, I'm going to go ahead and start adding the waterfalls. So I'm going to flip this way. And we are going to grab 3 of our waterfall pieces. I should have one more. Oh, here it is. Goodness. Okay. These will start. I'm going to do this one first. So I'm going to make sure these are burnished really nicely. I want these nice and flat. So the way we made this one was on its own piece. This one is going to go directly on to the paper. And we are going to start with the first one, and we're just going to go just underneath where that paper lies. And I want to make sure that I'm in the middle. I am. Okay. And just kind of line up your paper at the top so it's as straight as possible. And then we'll move to the next one. Add glue to that 1/2 inch. We want to butt this right up to the last one. And like I said, this is just another way to do waterfalls. And you want to make sure that these are lining up with each other. If they're not, just kind of adjust, rescore, whatever you need to do to make these line up nicely. And you only have 3, so this is a little bit easier. When you have 6 or 8 of them, it's a little bit more difficult, so it's easier to do it this way. At least that's what I have found. And our third one. And I want to make sure that it's lining up. And it is now, so we are going to burnish it. So as you can see, this waterfall is made for a little bit larger pictures or the vertical pictures. Now we're going to flip this the other way. And we're going to do our other waterfall, starting with one. Again, I'm going to leave a little bit of that paper showing, not a whole lot. And I went a little far on the, down on this side, but that's okay. It's the bottom, so I'm okay with that. If you want to center it better and put more of a space in between the middle, you can do that as well. Next one. And the last one. Over just a bit. And burnish. Now, for these, you also have the option of putting paper in those little 1/2-inch spaces. Again, it's a spot you can journal if you're using black paper with your gel pens. And so I'm leaving it because that is the purpose of this folio was for that. So now you have that fun middle section, or first section. All right, so to make our little skinny waterfall on this side, this one, again, somehow I missed there were some problems with my video, so I'm redoing this portion. I've already done mine. You can see how it lays in here. Once we get it all made, it will lay flat inside here after you add your paper. And then we have our little belly band, which I do have that on video. So I'm gonna set this aside. What you need for this is a sheet that it's going to be 7 1/4, and it's going to be 2 1/2 wide. Okay. And with that piece, what you're going to do is score at 3 3/4, 4 1/4, 4 3/4, 5 1/4, 5 3/4, 6 1/4, and 6 3/4. Okay. Then all of these, we will have 6 of these that measure 2 1/2 by 4 1/4. Put them across to 4 1/4, and we are going to take them, put 1/2-inch score lines on one end of each one of these. Apologize, my dogs are barking in the background, not sure why. All right, so those are all scored. I am going to pull my scoreboard out of the way. And these you just want to burnish really, really well and just get a nice crisp line here. So I'm going to burnish front and back of my score lines. And again, I will be using this in another album, so it's okay that I had to remake it. I actually like these. This is one way to make a waterfall, and then our middle section you saw how to make a different way. All right, so I've got those burnished front and back. Now, here we have our 7 marks, okay? We only are going to use 6 of these. So we're going to take our glue and put it on the first one, just on that 1/2-inch space. And you're going to skip one and put this on the second, and I will hold it up closer to the camera here in just a second. You also want, let me push that up a little bit more. You want to close the top one over it just to make sure everything is lining up. And it is, so I'm going to go ahead and burnish that. And I'm going to move on to the next one. And you'll just continue this all the way down, making sure each time that we're lining up with the last one. You don't want it to be a crooked waterfall, so I always look at mine before I completely burnish. And you're just going to repeat this step for each one of the waterfall pages. Again, just making sure that's nice and straight. Burnish it out. And on to the next one. Two more. And I'm just going to go ahead and make this one. I could just stop and tell you to repeat the process. However, like I said, I can use this in another album. So just going to go ahead and finish it. I have the paper cut. All right, last one. That on. Check it with that one. It's good. All right, so now, as you can see, you'll flip all these forward, including that top piece that we did, and just kind of wiggle stuff around, make sure everything is lining up. See, this one is a little off, so I'm just going to go in and I'm going to push up to make that score line everything up a little bit better. And there we have our waterfall with its own back. So when you adhere this, again, that is going to go with glue just on that back space, and then it'll be placed right in the middle of the page. Okay, so that is that type of waterfall. And like I said, we did a different type here previously. The waterfall that we made here is going to go in the middle of this portion, but I want to embellish this page first because as you can imagine, it would be difficult to press down on this. So this side, I have made two smaller gusseted pockets, and I've put the black paper on these. This will not have any other paper on this side, just these pockets. So these measure, let me give you the measurements. They're done the same way that we did that last one, the stacked pockets. These are going to be 4 3/8 by 2.5, scored on those three sides at 1/2 inch. Okay. And these go in, we want these to go to the side. And so I want to make sure that I'm doing this. I think we can actually do it from here so I can make sure I'm doing it right. All right, so just add your glue, and you can put paper under this if you want. I'm leaving a lot of this black because, one, the contrast, and two, I want to be able to use, oh, darn it. I want to be able to use a white pen to do some journaling in here. So I'm going to flip this around, make sure we're at the edge of our little flap here, and add the pocket. Go all the way down to the corner and the bottom of the page with this pocket. And we can burnish that one. And these can hold tags, they could hold another photo. They're just super cute because they're small. You can do a lot with them. All right. And then the other one, same size, same measurements, same scoring. And we're going to put that one. I'm going to leave a little space. I think it has a tiny bit of space in the middle when we put this. I'm going to go all the way up to that corner. Make sure that we're lining up here because it'll look wonky if you don't. So turn it back sideways if it helps. It does help me. And we will get that all burnished out. So now you have these two fun side pockets. And then I'm just going to put a strip of one of the border strips or something on the side here. So that is that portion. Now, for your waterfall that we previously made, you're going to need 1.5 by 6 1/4 piece of the artisan. And we're going to put this on the scoreboard at that 6 1/4 mark and score it at 1/2. Again, I'm going to miter this just like I did the others. So it's like a tab. And we're going to fold that down and burnish it out good. And that needs to be glued to the bottom of this page in the middle. So try to find your center. You can set your waterfall on here to make sure that you're centering it. That's about right. And then just make sure that it goes up on the page and burnish out your little tab, okay? And this is where we're going to put our final magnet set. This waterfall is a little thicker, so I'm going to go ahead and use the large magnets. So I'm going to put one, I don't think you can see that. Let me pull this in. I'm going to put one here. And then I'm going to go ahead and flip this up so that it sticks on the other side. I already had my sticky off of these. Nope, it didn't stick. You definitely need it to stick. There we go. Okay. Now for this waterfall that we made, as you know it, we had all this backing because we put it on its own sheet. We're just going to go ahead and add glue to that area only. And I did add 1-inch pieces of the checkerboard paper to the ends of mine. I would suggest doing 1/2 inch because the 1 inch didn't, whoops, I forgot to put the paper down. The 1/2 inch just didn't work out as well as I thought it was going to. I'm also going to go ahead, this is a white paper, so I'm going to go ahead and I am going to ink this out a little bit. Just my edges. Adds a little bit more contrast. Again, inking is optional. And this panel is 3 3/4, if I remember. No, it's 4. So this is going to be 3 7/8 by 6 7/8. This paper is all just so cute. Love it. All right. Put that on. And we will burnish that paper down. Make sure we don't have any glue seeping out anywhere. Then I'm going to go ahead and add my waterfall. Again, I'm just putting glue on that area that the waterfalls were glued to. And then we will stick this right down in the middle of the page. Just like so. And then in order to burnish this a little easier, my suggestion would be to go through each 1/2 inch space above and just burnish it down. And that way you make sure that glue is completely adhered all the way throughout. Even that last one. And then you have your magnet that holds it closed. Okay, so here's what we have so far. We have our stacked pockets here, and I did go ahead and embellish those. You can still slip paper down inside, and that's how I did that. I've added paper to both sides of my flap, covering the magnet. And then I just took some scraps, and I'll show you really fast how to make one of these. If you just take a little scrap of your leftover papers, as soon as I can find a good size one to show you, this one will work. So this was a border strip, and I'm just going to take this and I'm going to fold it over. And then we're just going to take the other side and we're going to fold that over, lining it up with the other line. You want to make sure it's in line, like so. And then grab scissors and simply trim off that bottom section. So then you have this nice little corner. Glue these 2 little flaps and put it on. It's that simple. Something fun you can do with your scraps. So we have our little waterfalls here. And like I said, I'm leaving these black because you can write on them with a gel pen and it comes out really nice. So you could add your photo. If this was a lengthwise photo, I could stick that in here and I can write something on here. I just thought that was an interesting way to do that. Now for my closure, what I went ahead and did is I used my Crop-A-Dile. You can use a hole punch on the 1/8 inch setting, and I just popped a hole between these 2 pockets here that goes through this side and tied a good size knot so that my closure would work. And again, I didn't embellish anything here. I want to be able to write in here. This is kind of a journal plus mini photo picture album. So this opens this way with our magnet. I did embellish both sides of this as well. Now we're going to move to the cover, and what I've already done is I have added my strips. I did take 2 strips of the Cartabella solid cardstock and the salmon, and then 2 smaller strips in the My Colors Caribbean Sea. I also covered this with the My Colors Caribbean Sea, and that is where the other side of my ribbon is. So quite simply, I am just going to embellish this. I'm going to grab my Distress ink over here. And as said before, you can do this with any paper. You can move things around. You can add more flaps, add more embellishing to your waterfall pages. Inserts can go in those pockets. Just a lot of fun things you can do with this little folio. This also will adapt really well with 1/2 inch rather than the 3/4 inch spaces that I did. If you want to do that. And if you didn't want that little peeking in the front, you can make this flap 5 as well. Hopefully that's not confusing. Just have fun, play with it, adjust it how you like. So I'm just going to get this all burnished out, get rid of all that extra glue coming out of there. And then I just took a piece of black chipboard that I had in my stash. You can use the Artisan and cover your chipboard, or you can just choose to put some foam on this to stick it up a little bit. I just wanted this to be very clean and simple, nothing elaborate on my cover. And I'm just simply going to glue this 4x6 that I cut apart onto my black chipboard, leaving that frame of about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. And mine isn't perfect. I didn't measure. And then that's simply just going to go right on the front of my album like so. Super easy. way to keep a clean and simple cover. Just pop up one of your elements. If you're just placing something like I'm doing here down, just simply pop it up on some chipboard. You can wrap chipboard. You can use black chipboard. Anything that works. Just burnish that out nicely. And then I'm also not going to embellish the back. You can. Now, as you can see, our ribbon is right where we need it to go so that we have that little peak of those pockets right there. Just simply tie this in a bow. And there you have it. Easy peasy little folio to make. And I will tell you, this seems a little floppy when you first make it, but once you start adding photos and inserts, this will become less like that. So that's what I have. I hope everyone has a happy New Year's and makes one of these. And if you do anything different to it, or even if you don't, if you make it just like this, be sure to share it with us in Scrapbookers on Facebook. Have a wonderful day.